Hello and welcome to the Ham Radio Guy podcast. I'm Marvin and my call sign is W0MET. Whether you're an experienced ham or just getting started, this podcast is for you. We're bringing you the latest of topics, news, and information, and all things amateur radio each episode right here to this show. This is episode number 48. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Hamfest. And whether the experience really justifies the price. Now, if you've ever considered hitting up events like Hamcation or Dayton Hamvention, Huntsville Hamfest, or even any of the other local Hamfest, you might be wondering what that trip really cost you. So we're going to break down the cost and see where all these dollars really go. Before we get there, I want to talk about a new product I've been using a little bit. I've provided an Amazon link in the show notes. It's the Sondyco butane torch with fuel gauge. It's got a refillable soldering iron torch lighter with adjustable flame for welding and resin art industrial. I use it for a lot of shrink wrapping of the different wire connectors that I'm doing. And this thing is really incredible for melting some solder on some of the solder connections, things like that. It does a really great job. It's got adjustable flame. It's really hot, but it's refillable with butane, and it's been an absolute great product that I've added to my ham shack, and it's good to have around. So very convenient little tool to have. It's just it's a little flame torch, a little butane torch, and it puts out a heck of a little flame if you need it. So consider getting yourself one of those. Again, I'll provide those notes in the show link, or one of those links in the show notes. Boy, I got a little tongue twisted there. Of course, we can't forget our Ham Radio Guy podcast is sponsored by Dakota Lithium, your ultimate outdoor power solution. Discover the ultimate indoor power solution with Dakota Lithium. The lithium iron phosphate batteries deliver unbeatable performance and durability for all your adventures. With high energy density and long cycle life, they provide reliable power wherever you go. From camping to off-grid living, built tough to withstand extreme conditions, and their batteries are a reliable companion in any environment. Choose from a variety of sizes and capabilities to suit your needs. Upgrade to Dakota Lithium today and experience the difference. And I've been using these batteries for a little over a year and a half now, and I really do find full trust in them. They have held a charge very well, and I was kind of hoping up here in the cold in Wisconsin where I am now that temporarily, for a few more days anyway, through Christmas, that I was able to get maybe a video in with kind of the draining of the battery in the cold weather, and I might still try and get that out, so we'll see. I haven't just started recording anything yet, but need to spend some time during the day testing, and of course working full-time too. It makes it a little more challenging, but that is something I'm kind of looking at doing. If not, I'll be back in Massachusetts here, and we might be able to try and perform a test there as well. Well, with other ham radio projects, I've been continuing to play Flex Radio a little bit, set up my network rack, and really went through a bit of a disaster yesterday, being like December 22nd, that I was trying to put up my 25-foot long repeater antenna, and in the process bent the run 50-foot mast a bit. And so I went to order some replacement pieces for that. So a little bit of a project that went south for me that I did not anticipate. Probably should have had a few more people in place. And it was a little bit of a wind on the hill too, but on the hill I live on, I don't know there's many days that there isn't wind here. So it may just be a challenge in itself every day that I go to do this. But I think that project now will be put on hold until the spring, when I can get more of like a tower put up, and I will have a ground I can get into and dig a little bit, put a foundation in for the tower, and just wasn't feasible in September for time-wise. And of course, now we're into winter, and that ground is very, very frozen out there. So as chilly as it's been with 20s and whatnot at night, and sometimes during the day, it does make it very difficult to be able to put in any type of base in that type of frozen ground. Well, if you'd like to help support the channel and become a Patreon, look for me over on patreon.com/the Ham Radio Guy. There are 3 levels you can support the channel at: Technician, General, and Extra. You can simply support the channel at $2 a month or get the Extra class membership with more benefits. And I'll be offering another deal at the beginning of the year here for joining. So stay tuned for that and look for more information around that. Well, with this, let's get into a little bit of news. Well, the news for the week: ARIS will be conducting a slow scan television experiment from the International Space Station beginning December 25th and running through January 24th. It's officially titled Expedition 72. The ARIS Series 23 slow scan TV experiment. Interested listeners can receive slow scan television images in PD120 mode from the ISS on 148.800 megahertz. There will be 12 different images in the series coming from the call sign RS0 ISS. Received images can be uploaded to the ARIS Slow Scan Television or SSTV gallery at https://aris.usa.org/ARIS_SSTV. Our second news story: a new initiative is taking ham radio community by storm. And I'm bringing this back because it is near the end of the year and we want to start the 2025 off a little more fresh. So I'm reliving this story a little bit just to kind of push it out again and remind people now that it's getting closer to 2025 to see what they might be doing for this next year. So a new initiative is taking the ham radio community by storm: the Ham Radio Challenge. Designed to push boundaries and spark creativity, this challenge features weekly exercises aimed at helping amateur radio enthusiasts develop their skills in unique and exciting ways. From designing personalized QSL cards to catching up a station on 6 meters via sporadic E, each week presents participants with a fresh opportunity to learn and engage. Hams are encouraged to share their progress and connect with others by posting updates on social media using the hashtag Ham Challenge. For those looking to exchange tips and ideas in real time, the IRC channel is also available to foster collaboration and community engagement. Whether you're a seasoned operator or just starting your amateur radio journey, the Ham Radio Challenge offers fun and supportive way to grow your skills. To get started, visit hamchallenge.org and join the growing community of hams taking part in a unique experience. And our final story, and this is more, I'll call it informative content, but the Internet Archive Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications, your free online ham radio library that is proudly a project of the Internet Archive. As the years come to a close, we would like to take a moment to reflect on the incredible milestones they have achieved and look forward to what's next. The Internet Archive, a nonprofit library, is the driving force behind DLARC, the Digital Library of Amateur Radio Communications. And we're excited to share that we're in the midst of their big year-end fundraiser. If DLARC has been a valuable resource for you, we'd be grateful if you'd consider supporting us. By using this special donation link, you can ensure the contribution is recognized as supporting DLARC specifically. Your generosity helps pay for our dedicated staff and keeps our petabytes of servers humming to provide uninterrupted access to our vast collection. Now let's talk numbers. Kay Savitz, K6KJN, was thrilled to crunch the data and see how productive in 2024 had been for DLARC. Through the end of November, she said we have scanned an astounding 1.1 million pages of radio manuals, journals, magazines, newsletters, books, and catalogs. Every single page is online and fully textable search, making it easier than ever to explore the rich history and technical knowledge of ham radio. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We've also digitized hundreds of videos, audio tapes, ensuring these invaluable resources are preserved and accessible for years to come. This has been a productive and fulfilling year, and we couldn't have done it without the support and enthusiasm of the ham radio community. As we gear up for 2025, we're excited to continue expanding our library and providing even more resources to hobbyists, historians, and anyone passionate about amateur radio. Here's to another year preserving and sharing the legacy of ham radio. If you have questions about the project or materials to contribute, contact Kay at archive.org. All news is sourced from the ARRL, AR Newsline, POD, and other sources from around the country. Amateur radio with a news release date of December 23rd, 2024. Well, ham radio prep. If you're looking to get your ham radio license or looking at getting an upgrade or learning more about HF operating, head over to Ham Radio Prep. Check out their multiple series of courses and save 20% discount on everything with code HAMRadioGuy. Grab your smartphone or tablet and download their app. It's free on iOS and Android. Again, you can find the link in the show notes with the description. If you have any questions or comments, reach out to me at w0met@thehamradioguide.com. Well, let's get into the main topic of the week, and that is talking about Hamfest. So first of all, what is a Hamfest? If you're not familiar with them, you're new to amateur radio. Think of it as a convention for amateur radio enthusiasts and a place to buy, sell, trade equipment, meet fellow hams, attend workshops or seminars, and of course, geek out over all kinds of gear, new and old. And the big names like Hamcation in Florida, Dayton Hamvention in Ohio are bucket list worthy for most of us, but smaller regional events are also worth checking out and sometimes some of the best deals out there. So let's start with the basic cost of like entry fees. Now, for Hamcation, I found that price to be around $20 to $30 for general admission. It may depend upon whether you buy your ticket early or you buy into the gate. And then Dayton Hamvention, you're looking at $30 to $40 for a ticket there. And then the smaller Hamfest are usually $5 to $15. Now you say, that's not too bad, right? But those entry fees are really just the tip of the iceberg at this point. We can start to encompass a whole lot more fees as we go through this. So with a trip like Hamvention or Hamcation, you're going to have some travel costs involved. So let's look at what that might consist of. So unless you're lucky enough to have a major Hamfest in your backyard, if you live near Dayton or Orlando or maybe Huntsville, Alabama, you'll need to travel. And so here's a rough breakdown for a typical trip. Now I've done this based on maybe some higher cost, and I'd rather err on the side of the higher cost than really driving in this too low. And of course, then, trips for airlines will vary in this as well as we get into that. So gas. So let's say you're driving a mid-sized car, average 25 miles per gallon. You got a 500-mile round trip at $4 per gallon. That's going to run you about $80 in gas. Hotels, most are going to be multi-day Hamfest, so you may want to go in Friday and then be there Saturday, Sunday. So you're going to have, probably a Friday night and a Saturday night. So you're going to have, probably a good night or two in there at least. And so, it's going to require some type of overnight stay unless you're able to find, maybe a campground or you're hauling a trailer. And of course, if you're hauling a trailer, you're not going to be getting the 25 miles per gallon. But, budget hotels, you might be able to find something like Motel 6 or something for the $80 to $120 a night. But if you want something a little bit more comfortable, a little bit nicer, this could set you back $150 or more. So potentially for 2 nights, you're easily looking at $200 to $300 very easily. Of course, anytime you got a road trip going, you can't go without any food. And so, meals on the road can add up fast. There is no such thing, I think, anymore as a $5 burger and fries from McDonald's. And so you've got 3 meals to take in for the day. And, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a lot of companies are offering per diem sometimes around that $40 to $60 range. And, so if you can try and keep within, call that per diem range, a 2-day trip means spending anywhere between $80 and $120 potentially for food for just 2 days. That's not to encounter the food price that you're going to pay at like Hamcation, where a couple of years ago, a burger and fries was costing you $25. Now, I think they kind of eliminated some of that vendor and they knocked it down a little bit, but I know it's still every bit of probably $15 to $18 to go get, maybe 3 or 4 chicken tenders and a set of fries or a burger and fries from some of the vendors within Hamcation. I think they're some of the more expensive vendors in Orlando, and that they really bend you over within the fairgrounds themselves, which I don't think is right or fair, but that's just been my experience in the past. So let's say you're going to Hamcation from out of town, because that is literally the next Hamfest coming up in February. So between gas, hotel, and food, you're going to be looking at a baseline of just probably $400 just to show up. So how can you potentially look at saving some money? And, sometimes even if you are looking at hotels in Dayton already, some of those hotels, and we're just a little over 5 months away from that, is that a lot of hotels are filled up and booked and they're full. So my suggestion here on travel is to book early, or you might be left out. And sometimes you can go into Airbnbs or find another group that might be staying somewhere and get some discount pricing for sure. But it really does have an effect on you to go book your own hotel room. Sometimes it can be a lot more expensive than trying to do a buddy thing along the way, which helps split some of that cost. So instead of paying, the $180 for 2 nights of hotel, now it's $90 a night for you. You're paying $180 between you and your buddy for each day, which helps out a lot easier. So have I booked any of my trips for 2025 yet? No, unfortunately not. And here it is now, just a little before Christmas in 2024. And so that is going to be a big thing for me this year, because based on my employer, I may be going to them anyway. So I'm not really sure where that's going to look like for me yet. So I haven't booked anything personally. But the big ones like Dayton, Hamvention, I will definitely get into that one way or the other. And so you start to look at, Hamfest like Dayton, hotel rooms around Xenia and the greater Dayton area, I really fill up very fast. And I'd say often more than probably a year in advance. And of course, on top of that, hotels tend to know that these big events come in, and they like to spike the rates a little bit during these events. So that can sometimes even double or triple what a normal night rate might be. So booking early isn't just a matter of convenience, but it's also saving that big chunk of change. For example, booking a room now might cost you $120, $150 a night. But if you wait until spring, even more so, you could easily be paying $250 or more. And I think actually when I looked here about 2 or 3 weeks ago, those room prices were already there at that $250 range or more. So they're already going to get you for it, and they know it's coming. So you just have to plan on it, plan accordingly, and try and save your pennies for it. And if you can't make this next year, maybe a little financial troubles, it's a little tight on the budget so far, maybe go ahead and start looking for the next year after that and saving your money for that. Now, again, there is some other cost benefits here that we can look at and consider. And I kind of mentioned a minute ago was, splitting a hotel room. But, if traditional hotels are out of your price range or they're already filled up, you need to consider other alternatives like Airbnb, VRBOs, or maybe other vacation rental options. And the cost benefits of splitting a rental home with fellow hams can be much cheaper than individual hotel rooms. For example, a 3-bedroom house near Dayton could cost around $200 per night. But if you split that 3 ways, it's definitely a bargain and you've saved some money. I've done this a couple times myself personally down in the Huntsville area and rented an Airbnb, and it worked out very nice. It was a nice place to stay. The beds were comfortable and it worked out pretty darn good. So many Airbnbs come with full kitchens. So sometimes you can even save on meals by cooking instead of having to dine out. So grabbing something simple might be a better way to go, and cooking some burgers or something on a stove. Or some of them will offer even grills. You might do something easy like that to make it work. Now, if you're traveling back home, you don't want to make a lot of food because you don't really have a good way to carry it. But if you're traveling by car, maybe bring a cooler and you could bring some of your own stuff with you. Have those turkey cheese sandwiches or something for lunch. That might be able to work out pretty good. Another tip would be check out for accommodations in neighboring towns. Maybe just a 20 to 30 minute drive might save you $100 or more per night. So that might be a way to consider saving a little bit of change here in 2025 for some of these Hamfest. Now, that was more about talking and driving to Hamfest and finding a way to get there. But what if you have to fly? If you're coming from a ways away, driving may not be an option for many hams. But so if you live far from these big events, like if you're living on the West Coast or farther East Coast, and you want to drive to Dayton, Orlando, that might be a couple of days drive. So it may not be a practical way to go, and so you're going to have to look at airfare. Now, again, round-trip airfare can vary greatly depending on what part of the country you're coming from, the time of year you're departing, and where you're going, because if you're in the summer busy season in May, you may still be getting in on a good summer deal, but yet it may start to bump up some rates already. And if you're looking to Orlando in February, there may be some specials you might be able to find going to Orlando, depending on the different airlines. But I think a round-trip airfare would be, I would say, on average, $400 to $600, depending on your starting point and when you book. So if you want to check out things like Spirit Airlines or some of the like Frontier Airlines, your checked bags may cost you some money there as well. If you want to try and find a cheaper airline, you might be able to do that. But then you're going to start paying for that seat and you're going to pay for the bags. And sometimes those can really add up too. And if you're planning to buy gear, you might need to factor in the cost of shipping at home or paying for that extra luggage. And so what is your plan of attack there? If you're going to buy a new radio, maybe you just have the opportunity to have them ship that radio to you. So when you get home, maybe it's sitting there on your porch and it's ready to go. And of course, airport transportation. Once you get there, you may not have a way to get from the airport to a hotel, to the fairgrounds, to wherever it might be hosted. And so don't forget about budgeting a rental car, some type of ride share or shuttle to the venue. And of course, again, you're gonna have to go from the venue back to the hotel that night, and then back to the venue again. Typically, it's fairgrounds that we're going to, but is it cheaper to get a rental car at that point? And you can certainly buy them, certainly like a 3 days, around $180 or so. That is very doable. But booking flights early here, it would be my summary that you can save hundreds of dollars, and many airlines open bookings, about 11 months in advance. And so the earlier you secure your seat, the better the deal you're going to get. And, even looking at some of these airlines I've looked at to fly is like, hey, there's 2 seats left at the discount price. So getting in early would probably be ideal here. And consider using fare comparison tools like Google Flights or Hopper or some of the other programs out there like Kayak to find some of the best prices available and what their best airline is flying out of your area. And maybe you have time, you can, instead of doing a direct flight, maybe you can find a little cheaper flight by taking a couple of hops if you got the time and you can afford any delays that might occur as a result of that. So, of course, as we get into this further, we have time versus money. And I kind of started to touch on it a minute ago is how much time do you have to dedicate to a Hamfest? Do you have the vacation time available? If you're short on vacation days, again, you may not be able to spend a couple of days driving there. Flying might be your best option, even if it costs more. So let's say you live in Texas and you want to attend PacificCon in California. Driving would take about 2 days each way, a minimum, but a flight would be just a few hours away. So those extra 4 days on the road could be better spent at the event or simply back home with family. So things you have to take in consideration as you think about going to a Hamfest here in 2025. Now, again, you can have a lot of cost in with these, but let's see if we can find a few more ways to maybe reduce some cost here. A few ways to make a Hamfest more budget friendly, and I kind of mentioned this a few minutes ago as well. Travel with friends, carpool, be able to split the gas, share the accommodations for any type of hotel, Airbnb, to reduce some individual expenses. As I mentioned, you can also pack snacks and meats and coolers to avoid that overpriced food at Hamcation or any of the other events. And so having your own meals on the road or in your hotel with some snacks is definitely a way to go. Booking early, and again, getting those deals on flights, hotels, and rental cars, the better off you might be. And again, you might even get the better discount for some Hamfest by doing a pre-registration or maybe making a multi-day pass potentially ahead of time and buying your tickets now versus waiting till May to pick them up at the gate at Hamvention. So if you can be flexible in your travel, travel midweek instead of over a weekend, you might find even cheaper flights and hotels. So I hope that this is some good information that can help you save some money for your Hamfest trip in 2025. Now we've gotten through the ways to get to the Hamfest, whether it's by car or by plane, and we've associated some of the travel costs associated with that and what those might be. So here comes the fun part. Shopping. No Hamfest is complete without picking up some new gear. And here's a rough guide to probably help curb some of your spending or to help maybe make a budget for some of your spending that you might do while you're at the Hamfest. Of course, we're all going to go there and we're going to find new gear and we're going to find some, potential entry level radios or accessories that might cost, $100 to $300. And, any mid-range transceiver will cost you $500 to $1,500. And if you go out to the, tailgate section, the treasure trove, the junkyard, you might find some rare finds or vintage equipment, and you might find a really good deal on it, and you might find somebody that's like, I really want this, but the guy's got a really high price on it, and so it might cost you, a little bit more money there. But even if you, set yourself as call it a modest budget, and I usually do, a range of $200 to $300 for some gear, unless I know specifically I'm wanting to replace a radio and I'm going to spend that $1,500. I'm going to have that available for me. But, you might find some little gadgets here. There might be some new little 3D printed thing. Oh, wait a minute. I'd really like to have a paddle. Maybe I'm going to start getting into CW for the year. And so a paddle might cost you just $200 or $300 alone. So that could blow through your modest budget pretty easy. So it's very easy to overspend when you're surrounded by, we'll call it shiny new toys. And it's like, oh man, I got to have that. And, and of course, when you start buying the shiny new toy, oh, I'll need a cable for this. I might need a new mic. I need some coax cables. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I need a couple more connectors. I think I loaned my last one to, PL259 to SMA to my buddy last field day. I didn't replace it or get it back. I need a couple of connectors for replacement this year. Or you might just find a book or something else that can add another, $50 to $100 to your bill pretty easy. So now we've got, anywhere from, $500 to, for travel on up to potentially, another, let's call it $300 for gear potentially at Hamfest. Don't necessarily you have to go there and spend, but typically we all like to go, have the shiny new toy and something that we might not see at a local Hamfest. And so let's get the greatest and latest and see how we can play with it and what we can do with it. So let's get into some cumulative costs now for major Hamfest. And maybe you agree with me on these, maybe you don't, and we'll see where this goes. But the cumulative cost for some major Hamfest, and since the first one is going to be Hamcation in Orlando, Florida, let's go with travel and hotel, $400. Entry into the Hamfest will be about $30. Food, again, we're spending, potentially 2 days there, $120. If you throw $300 of gear in there, you have a total spend of $850. Now, I think that's, probably right in the middle. I don't know if that's the low or high. It may be, depending on where you're coming from and your travel costs, it could be much higher than that. But, $850 for that one. Dayton Hamvention. Travel and hotels for 2 days. I've accounted for this, $500. So about $250 a night there. Entry level or entry into the Hamfest at the time of entry is about $40. Food, $150 because you're going to be there a little bit longer. It is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Gear, I've raised that to $400. So we've got a total of $1,090 to go to Dayton Hamvention. That's kind of that minimum spend. Again, you might get by with a little bit more cost savings, but you can figure at least $1,000 to make that trip. Now, Huntsville Hamfest, which is about the third largest Hamfest in the country. Travel, hotel, and cost, $350. Again, that may vary depending upon your airline travel and where you have to come from. But if you're in the southeast region of the U.S., you might be able to get there pretty quick. by car. Entry here is only $15. They do have some of the cheapest entries I know of. Food, for that food and travel, a couple of days of travel in there, I got $100 on that. Again, I've kept gear at $300, and the total cost $765. So the smaller local Hamfest are definitely more affordable, and Huntsville is smaller. It's only about 3,500 people versus Dayton is like 25,000 to 30,000 people. So if you can drive back home the same day, you're mostly looking at gas, some entry fees, and some food, which might be a total cost of $50 to $100. So local Hamfest, again, you're not going to find the shiny new toys, the big, Gigaparts and Ham Radio Outlet and DX Engineering and some of the other vendors that you'll find at some of the other Hamfest, but you might be able to find some good used gear there, and sometimes some local smaller dealers like Chat Radio or Quicksilver Radio might show up at some of these Hamfest, and so they will also have some of these things that you're looking for sometimes as well. So here's some closing thoughts. Hamfest are an incredible experience, but realize that the cost can add up very quickly, and especially if you don't plan ahead. So whether you're booking flights, choosing a hotel, or finding an Airbnb, I would say early preparation is a key to keeping within your budget and keeping that in check. So what about you? Have you started planning for your 2025 Hamfest yet? If not, do you plan on going to a Hamfest? And if you have, what tips do you have for saving money? Let me know in the comments or send me an email, w0met@thehamradioguide.com, and let's help the ham radio community travel smarter and spend more time on the radio or better equipment. So until next time, I say 73. You know what? I realized I just had one other little section here. I had to scroll down to my next page. I missed that. My apologies. So here's what I started off with, and I forgot I had the next page I didn't scroll down to. So the big question, and this is why I asked at the beginning, is it worth the cost versus the experience? And the big question is, I would say the answer to that is a resounding yes, but it depends on your priorities. Networking, meeting the fellow ham operators, and maybe so you want to go meet a YouTuber, meeting them in person is really priceless. You can share ideas, learn new techniques, and make lifelong friends. You get the hands-on approach to shopping for gear. Hey, I really like the size of this radio. I see the size, the weight of it. You just don't look at a picture online. But you can really test out the equipment. You can compare models and, sometimes negotiate prices with somebody in the tailgate section. And, there's a lot of seminars. Cam Expo has some of the most educational opportunities available for workshops and presentations. And of course, they're always a great way to grow your skills and stay updated on the latest trends in amateur radio. So if you're on a tight budget, consider sticking to just maybe one or two events, one big event and maybe one little bit smaller one local with local Hamfest in there somewhere. And of course, carpooling, splitting hotel rooms, and bringing your own snacks are a great way to cut costs without sacrificing the experience. So again, I think this is a great thing to do. I think everyone should go to a Hamfest at least once. And, I understand that can be a costly endeavor, but for many of us, it's really an investment in the hobby we love. And whether you're a gear collector or an avid learner or just someone who loves being part of the ham radio community, the experience really does outweigh the expense. And, you live once, you die once. So, why not go ahead and try a Hamfest? And if you got the budget and time to do it, go do it. So I appreciate you tuning into this episode of the Ham Radio Guy. And again, if you've attended a Hamfest recently, I'd love to hear about your experience and what it cost. Drop me an email, and that will be the end of this segment here. Now, that is, the final part of it. So I forgot to put my summary in there. Again, forgot to move that page on down to the next page with my closing thoughts. So anyway, hope that you enjoyed this topic. Hope you enjoyed talking about Hamfest. And if you're looking for all things ham radio related, visit the Ham Radio Guy over at patreon.com/The Ham Radio Guy for informative content, product reviews, and exciting blog posts. Join the conversation on your favorite podcast platform to stay up to date with the latest trends and news in ham radio world. Connect with us on Twitter at The Ham Radio Guy for even more updates and engaging interactions. And don't miss out on the fun and knowledge sharing. Subscribe to The Ham Radio Guy today. Again, we just talked about Hamfest schedules, and we'll move on to them starting again in 2025. But definitely Orlando Hamcation, February 7th to the 9th. I'm giving you a little heads up there. You have about a little over a month to plan for that and get in there on that one still if you are doing it. Well, if you're enjoying the podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and share it with others. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and help us spread the word by telling your friends and family and neighbors. So I hope this week's episode taught you something new to enhance your ham radio operations. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, through your podcast platform, or by email at w0met@thehamradioguy.com. As always, this is your ham radio buddy in the chair and on the air, the ham radio guy. I say 73, W0MET.